It's created films that are not only commercially successful, but are critically acclaimed. Cadmel talks about Pixar in his new book. It's called Creativity, Inc. Before Steve Jobs bought the company, it was a division of Lucasfilm. We spoke to Ed Cadmel just a couple of hours ago and began by asking him what it was like to work with Star Wars creator George Lucas.
New technology at that time. So he hired me to bring in technology for video and for audio and for graphics, and it was actually a thrilling time.
From George Lucas, let's talk about Steve Jobs. He acquired Pixar from Lucasfilm. How much of Pixar's success is due to Steve Jobs?
Well, Steve supported us in a way that a venture capitalist couldn't and frankly shouldn't have. But he bought into our vision, and he brought a passion and a support. He wasn't part of our internal processes. He was more like the person representing us to the outside world, working things out with Disney. And that kind of support was vital to our success.
In terms of success, let's talk about Toy Story. It was the first feature-length computer-animated movie, extremely successful. Why? Was it because of the technology or the storytelling that made it such a hit?
Well, it took us 20 years to develop the technology to make the first computer-animated film. But when the film came out, the one thing we noticed was that most reviews at most had one line about the fact that it was computer graphics. And for the technical people, we figured this was a giant win for us. Because we always knew, even at the beginning, that it's really about the story, and it's not about the technology. But there's a vitality that comes, though, with changing technology. So we believe in mixing the two together, but mixing them together, while it makes things exciting, still doesn't replace the fact the story has to be great.
Because you wanted the technology to be invisible, to be behind the scenes, as it were.
Yes, that's right. There's something exciting about doing something new that you always want. And actually, if you think about it, in Walt Disney's day, he used the newest technology of the day. And we don't think of it that way because now it's old-fashioned. But then it was brand new technology.
Now, your first big success was actually the animated short about the famous hopping lamp, which is the Pixar logo. And I want to ask you, why the lamp? I mean, why choose to animate that inanimate object?
Well, John Lasseter, coming out of Cal Arts, always liked the idea of taking something which is inanimate and moving it in such a way that we, as people looking at it, would believe that they're thinking. And it's a hard challenge, but John liked hard challenges. So you could make people think this was a lamp, then you would succeed. I mean, excuse me, if you could think that the lamp was thinking, you would succeed. In fact, the biggest question we got at our technical conference afterwards was not how we did it, but was whether or not the lamp was a mother or a father.
And your answer to that?
Well, I always viewed it as a father. I don't think John decided.
All right. Now, we know that Disney later purchased Pixar in 2006. Disney, the animated studio division, it was in a slump, but since then, it's scored with a number of hit animated movies, including most recently Frozen, now the highest grossing animated film of all time. Do you think acquiring Pixar re-energized Disney animation?
When Disney acquired Pixar, they made it so that Pixar was separate, but Disney Animation, which was failing at the time, was put under John and me, and we decided to keep them entirely separate, but apply the principles that we had worked out over the years to this group that was failing. And it took some time for all this to go in place, but the result was 6 films in a row that were critically well received, and now these big successes in Tangled, Wreck-It Ralph, and Frozen. But here's the key point, is the people who just made Frozen are largely the same people who were there when they were failing. And our view was, all we had to do was get rid of the barriers and the blocks and trust that their talent and their intents would take them to a different level, which is, in fact, what happened.
You talk about getting rid of the barriers and the blocks, but also adding the Pixar principles to Disney Animated Studios. That was the secret to this revived success there. What are the Pixar principles?
Well, there are quite a few. One of them is a technique we use called the brain trust. A technique's not the right word, but it's more than just a group of smart people. It was a group who had a vested interest in each other's success. They liked each other, they were funny, they were focused. But very importantly, we paid attention to personal dynamics, which meant that the group itself had no authority. And this is something we learned from John as the director. What we did was we made it so the director has the final say in the film. The group can't override them. So even today, John doesn't override the director. So that means in those brain trust meetings, it's very safe, and the director can listen to the notes because they're not going to be told what to do.
Awesome insight there. That was Ed Kamala.